All right, some fun facts about Joshua. The book of Joshua tells the story of the Israelites crossing the Jordan River, then conquering and apportioning the land of Canaan. So, as I have said multiple times, right, they start here in this little depression just northeast of the Dead Sea. This is where Moses dies on top of Mount Nebo, which is about there. And then one of the first things that happens in the book of Joshua is that they cross the Jordan River. What is special with the Jordan River crossing? You guys have read it now? Yes, there's a miraculous water parting, right? Reminiscent of? Yes. So this is something that should not escape your notice. From early in the Joshua narrative, right? Joshua is being talked about as a next Moses. We're going to backtrack a minute and go back to Deuteronomy. So turn back to Deuteronomy chapter 7. This is what sets up the entire book of Joshua. Here's your question. God commands Israel to annihilate the inhabitants of Canaan along with all their possessions. I just read the whole chapter for you, so there's no question, right? He says, utterly destroy them, kill them all, including all their silver and gold and all their stuff. Okay, here's the question. Why? What rationale is provided by the Old Testament for this behavior? And I gave you some other passages that you can look at. I'll give you several minutes to do this.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the things that Yahweh is saying to Abraham is that the Amorites who live here in this land, they're pretty wicked. But they're not wicked enough yet. In another 400 years, they're going to be really wicked. Yeah, the most wicked. Right. So okay. So first of all, one of the things, right, is that of rationale that's given for this behavior is that this is divine judgment, right? Like this is commanded by God specifically for there's some aspect of wickedness of these people that God is saying, okay, it's time to judge. That this is all about the land. Right? Like what God says is that this particular plot of land, I have chosen this particular plot of land. I'm going to put you on that land, and this land is the place where I am going to show my glory. Right? And then later, right, in Deuteronomy, we've already seen it in Deuteronomy, what God says is, hey, listen, if you sin and you defile that land's going to kick you out too. Right? If you want to live in this little bit of real estate, you're you have to fulfill the covenant obligations. And if you don't fulfill the covenant obligations, the land is going to be like, sorry. Right? It specifically says in Deuteronomy, the land will vomit you out even as it vomited out the people who were here before. God is not a respecter of persons, right? What does God say? He says to the Israelites, he says, hey, look, if you don't do this, you yourself will become subject to the ban. So, this is not God just beating up on the Canaanites and the Amorites. Right? God says, if you don't obey me in this particular thing, right, this is the same thing is going to happen to you too. Right? Just like the land. Right? God says, this land, right, this little square of real estate is for my glory. That's its purpose. All right, now before we go on, here's what I want to tell you is remarkable about this. What's remarkable about this is that the Bible gives any kind of rationale at all for this behavior. If you read other ancient Near Eastern documents, like war documents, like they exaggerate their claims of war. Right? They intentionally exaggerate them, right? Like ancient Near Eastern kings, they will say they won wars that they didn't actually win. Because they're interested in this propaganda. Right? From an ancient Near Eastern perspective, if you can go wipe out another country, good for you, right? means your gods are on your side. So the fact that the Old Testament gives us any kind of sense of like justice or rationale for this is really unique in ancient Near Eastern literature. That's really when people talk about this aspect of the Old Testament, often this part is missed, right? Any type of comparison to other types of war documents in ancient Near Eastern world. So when I read the story of Achan, this is my question: why? Why to all of it? Give me your thoughts. So, if one dude breaks it, why is his wife being stoned and his kid being stoned and his sheep being stoned? You're on the right track, but you're not going far enough. Why? This is the question. Why? Keep asking the question. Why? Why for all of it? Well, it has to do with what I just read in Deuteronomy 7. If your Bible is still open to Deuteronomy 7, verse 25. Do not covet the silver and gold on them, and do not take it for yourselves, or you will be ensnared by it, for it is detestable to the Lord your God. Do not bring a detestable thing into your house, or you, like it, will be set apart for destruction. It wasn't just the people that were supposed to be destroyed. All their possessions were supposed to be destroyed too. Yes, Carter?
So it says you shall not bring it into your household. So when he brings it into his household, it's not just him but his whole household.
And what's the judgment of, if you do, what does God say is going to happen?
Destroy you and your whole household.
You will become the object of the ban.
What does that mean? Object of the ban?
In other words, you will be destroyed as completely destroyed as an offering to Yahweh.
Why do they call it a ban?
I do not have time to answer that. It's because of the word cherem in Hebrew that can have multiple meanings. One of them means the ban. That's why they call it. Okay, has this sunk in? I'm really trying to make this point across. This is another one that's often missed when talking about the Joshua and Canaanites. Is the fact that, again, this is not just on the Canaanites. Right? God says to Israel, if you break these rules, you yourself will become utterly destroyed. And we get an example. Achan, he breaks the rules, and he gets utterly destroyed. The whole point is, silver and gold, everything. They weren't supposed to get rich from taking the Canaanites. Everything was supposed to be destroyed as an offering to Yahweh.